Have you ever seen a product in Airsoft that is so dumb, it just gives you Forrest Whitaker eye, and the only thing that you can think to ask is why? Why would you possibly make this a reality? Well, if you have, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for new videos every Tuesday and Friday here on the channel. But in today's video, we're going to be discussing 5 dumb and useless products in Airsoft. What's up, Airsofters? My name is Lane, and welcome to the BB Warrior. We're here to help you have a better time both on and off the airsofting field, and the number 5 spot on this countdown is going to go to airsofting landmines. Now, these are a little bit interesting because they are kind of tall. These clock in at over 6 or 8 inches tall. I mean, they're a big drum, and the reason that is how these work is when you step on them, they're either going to shoot out water or powder. And I can tell you, as a player, I'd be pretty pissed if either of those got all over my legs and my pants and my kit and my gun, especially water, because a lot of people for some reason are afraid of water getting on their gun. But if it's a cold fall day, I would not want to be soaked in water personally. Now, the reason why these are so pointless is that, one, in Airsoft, it's going to be very hard to tell where to set this up, because you're not going to really, unless there's like a super narrow trail, there's not really going to be a good place to set this. And on top of that, people are going to be able to easily tell that you're setting this up, because most Airsoft games, at least where I am from, aren't long enough for you to kind of set this sort of thing up. So unless it's for a scenario and you're like a game hoster doing this, it's going to be very hard for you to use a landmine effectively. And on top of that, if you're just a player, I can imagine not many fields are going to be very happy about you digging little holes in the entirety of their field if you're going to be placing this in multiple spots, because people are going to trip in that and possibly sprain their ankles. So I can imagine it's going to be very hard to find a field that will allow you to use this, and even if you do, or you are the field owner, it's going to be very hard to find a place to set these up, especially because they do have a kind of high price point, so you can't like buy multiple and make some big minefield or something like that. That'd be kind of cool, but it's going to be very hard to use these, and that's why they take the number 5 spot on our countdown, because they just aren't practical, they're heavy, and not a lot of places are going to allow you to use them, if any. Insurance is pretty tight here in the US. I'm not really sure how tight it is in other countries, but I can imagine that the insurance company would have a heart attack if they knew that you were doing this at their field. But landmines take the number 5 spot on our countdown. The number 4 spot on our countdown goes to visible lasers. Now, I'm not talking about IR lasers, because those aren't visible to the human eye. I'm talking about like your typical red and green laser. Now, I find these to be absolutely useless, because all they do is give your position away. You're going to be able to see where that dot is coming from, or someone's going to see that, hey, someone is aiming right here. So you're going to stay away from those areas, or you're going to be able to more easily engage that target. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's a threat deterrent, because that is kind of true. If you shine your laser somewhere, I'm going to know not to peek that. But at the same time, I'm going to know that you're peeking that. It is a two-way street. So if I'm in a 1v1 firefight against someone, we're just kind of peeking corners and shooting at each other, and he turns on a laser, I'm going to know that that guy's there, and I am not going to peek that corner. I'm going to move my position and try to get a different angle on him that he's not paying attention to. So very similarly to flashlights, lasers are a two-way street, because while it does give you a little bit of an advantage, I'd say more of flashlights, lasers don't really give you an advantage. They can see where it's coming from. This is more pronounced in flashlights, but using a flashlight gives you a viable advantage. Using a laser doesn't really give you any advantage in Airsoft, except for maybe being able to get a quick shot off without having to actually look down your sights. But it's not like a video game where you get increased accuracy. Like, your groupings aren't just going to be smaller. So the number 4 spot on our countdown goes to lasers. Now, again, this isn't IR lasers, because IR lasers have a purpose in Airsoft. And for those of you who have never used night vision before, it can be a little hard to aim down your sights when you're using night vision, and you have to have a night vision ready optic, like an EOTech or an aim point or a primary arms T1. So it's easier to have your shouldered rifle and just use, or have your rifle shouldered, excuse me, and just use the laser, because that's going to give you a very accurate point of reference for where your shots are going to be going when you're using night vision. But for visible lasers, there's really just no point to using them. Now, the number 3 spot on our countdown is admittedly a product that I cannot stand, so I may be a little bit biased in this. And I want you guys to let me know down in the comments below, is this really useless? For the number 3 spot on our countdown, we're going to be talking about fake knives and bayonets. Now, I am not a fan of fake knives in Airsoft because I personally believe that they lead to a lot of problems. I'm also not a huge fan of the big Nerf katanas either. I mean, we're not playing Weebusoft. If you want to save your Japanese body pillow or something, go do it somewhere else. But we are playing Airsoft, so I'm not a huge fan of the big Nerf swords, and I'm still not a big fan of like the smaller, like M9 bayonet style knives. And the reason for that is I think they lead to a lot of issues on the field because as someone who has staffed at a field, it does not matter how many times you mention it. You can say it over and over and over again. Do not stab, do not slash, just lightly tap with the side of the knife. It does not matter how many times you say that, some idiot is going to full on stab at someone. And that is going to lead to a lot of issues. And I'd be pretty upset if that happened to me because even though they're rubber, they still hurt pretty badly. I mean, it's still a pointed object. It's not going to go in you like a knife, but they're still very uncomfortable to be stabbed by in personal experience. So I find that knives lead to a lot of problems on the field, and I think that's just something that, I think that's why a lot of fields are getting rid of them and completely just outright banning them. No fake knives. I know Milsom West doesn't allow fake knives, and I've seen a lot of bad things happen with them. Again, people stab at each other, or I had to tell a player to leave because he got the drop on someone and did that with the fake knife, and that obviously freaked the dude out. He was pretty pissed. I've seen people get in fights over them. Overall, I think that they're just really bad for Airsoft, and they're not really needed. If you get the drop on someone, you can just tap them, say you're dead, or point your rifle at them and say surrender. And I think that would just, it's a much easier and a much simple system, and it doesn't lead to a lot of issues. But I want to know what you guys think about that down in the comments below. Do you think that knives have a purpose? And I've seen, I just want to mention, now that I think about it, I've seen people bayonet charge in Airsoft, and that's just going to lead to a problem, and you know it's going to. And I mean, we're not playing Battlefield 1 Airsoft here. We're not going to be putting bayonets on our SMLEs and charging people. And if someone tried to charge me with their freaking Airsoft gun, I'd be so pissed if they actually hit me or something, because that's going to hurt. But I want to know what you guys think about rubber knives down in the comments below. Do you think they're useless, or do they have an actual purpose? Now, the number 2 spot on our countdown is something that I am very glad that I don't see very much anymore, and that is either marker or paint BBs. Now, the reason that I am glad that these are going away is they're very low quality and very bad for your rifle. And it's a shame because I think it's an interesting system which can kind of fix some of the honor-based properties of Airsoft, because like paintball, if there is a mark on you, it is a visible indicator that you are hit. However, because they are such low quality, often they either break in a hop-up, they break in the barrel. I've seen them scratch barrels before, or break up in the magazine, or like some of the paint ones I've seen break up and then it gets in your air nozzle and your hop-up, and it leads to inconsistencies. So I think that these could be a really cool product for Airsoft, and they could help with some of the honor-based issues of our game. However, I just don't think that they've been done very well, and I don't think they're really going to be. I think the only way that a system like this with either a paint core or something like that, which I think the paint core is the only way that it would work, is that because if there's a coating on the outside of the BB, that's going to affect your hop-up nub and your barrel, and you're going to have to swab your barrel pretty often. I think that the only way that a paint-based solution could work in Airsoft is if we switched over to 8 or 9mm BBs. Now, 8mm does already exist. I don't think 9mm BBs exist, but having that extra mass would allow for a paint core in there. But that has a ton of issues of its own with 8mm Airsoft. They shoot a lot harder. There's more jewel behind your hit. So that's a problem in itself of how are we going to adapt over to 8mm. I don't think we're ever going to change away from the 6mm platform, but it would be kind of interesting. But the number 2 spot on our countdown goes to paint BBs, because really they're just not feasible in a very good way. We've already listed 4 of my choices for the most useless products in Airsoft. However, I want to know what products you guys think are useless before we get to the number 1 spot on the countdown. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below. Now, the number 1 spot in this countdown is actually a product I think is really, really cool. However, it's just not very feasible, and that is the Airsoft Mortar by Hakatsu. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Hakatsu is the company that invented the Thunder Bee. So the mortar works very similarly to the Thunder Bee. However, it's adjusted to be able to actually fly up in the air. So how the Hakatsu mortar works is you fill the rocket with water and a CO2 cartridge. And when you drop it down the tube, there is a puncturing needle at the bottom of the tube, and that is going to puncture the CO2 and send the rocket and the water flying. The pressure from the CO2 projects it, and the water, the mixture of the CO2 and water propels it upwards of like 150 feet I've seen, and they're super cool, don't get me wrong. If I saw someone do that, I would be pretty shocked. However, there's a huge issue with these, and that's safety. These are very, very big, lots of mass objects with a point flying up in the air and towards the ground. I hope I don't have to explain why this could be a very potential safety issue, even for those of us who are wearing helmets. That would probably destroy an airsofting helmet. And even if you were wearing a real like MSA or OpsCore helmet, you are not going to be having a good day. So I think they're super cool, and I just don't see them ever being very feasible because, again, kind of similar to the landmine that we talked about for the number 5 example, they just don't really have a place unless you are the game admin and the game staff. Because if you're just some player, you're probably gonna end up hurting someone or yourself because you did it wrong, and they're pretty hard to carry. I mean, a mortar is a big system, as well as carrying the actual mortar itself, and that'd be super immersive, don't get me wrong, because having like a full squad that has to act as a mortar crew, that'd be pretty milsim, don't get me wrong. Just like having to have an assistant gunner for your HPA tank, that'd be super cool and super immersive. However, they're not practical because they go AEG range. I could just shoot the guy instead of shooting a freaking mortar at him. And on top of that, they're not very safe, they're not very feasible. From what I've heard about the quality of them, they're kind of iffy. Like so a mortar, obviously it's tilted, and then you have a support arc right here. From what I've heard, they're pretty flimsy ABS plastic. They do come with molly mounts. If you want to mount it to the back of your plate carrier, I don't know why you'd ever want to do that unless you want to like have like a rocket on your back, like a Titan from Titanfall or something. But I think they're super cool, but at the same time, they just have no purpose, and they have a lot of safety issues. And I mean, they'd be kind of cool, like, if you were a game staff and you were shooting it somewhere that, like, didn't have players in it, or you're making it, like, an objective or something. That'd be kind of cool. However, they're kind of pricey. I believe they come in around $100. I could be wrong about that. And they just don't serve a practical purpose on the airsofting field because of their range. And if you made it so that they had a larger range, it'd be more of a danger to hitting players. But, guys, that has been my top 5 useless and dumb products in airsoft that really just, why would you ever make these? If you enjoyed the video and this was your first time here, I would absolutely love to have you join our community by hitting the subscribe button down below, and while you're at it, make sure to hit the bell icon next to it for updates when we post new videos every Tuesday and Friday here on the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, make sure to pick up a BB Warrior patch. I'll bring that a little bit closer so you guys can see it. Every patch sold directly helps me improve the quality of the videos that we do here on the channel, because this is just a hobby for me. YouTube is nowhere near my job, and the support of you guys allows me to get better equipment, have a backdrop, things like that. So for those of you who have already bought a patch, or those of you who are thinking about buying a patch, thank you very much for the support. For those of you who can't afford to, thank you for watching the videos. Just watching these videos and enjoying them and interacting in the comments and liking the video, all of that good stuff, that it really does mean the world to me, and it makes me want to continue to make videos like this one. But that is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you very much. I will see you all next time.